"One moment," she said. "You can wait, Austin. Step in here, sir. May I ask you if you have met my husband before?" "No, madame. I have not had the honor." "Then I apologize to you in advance. I must tell you that he is a perfectly impossible person. Absolutely impossible. If you are forewarned, you will be the more ready to make allowances." "It is most considerate of you, madame." "Get quickly out of the room if he seems inclined to be violent. Don't wait to argue with him. Several people have been injured through doing that. Afterwards, there is a public scandal, and it reflects upon me and all of us. I suppose it wasn't about South America you wanted to see him." "I could not lie to a lady." "Dear me, that is his most dangerous subject. You won't believe a word he says. I'm sure I don't wonder. But don't tell him so, for it makes him very violent. Pretend to believe him, and you may get through all right. Remember, he believes it himself. Of that you may be assured. A more honest man never lived. Don't wait any longer, or he may suspect. If you find him dangerous, really dangerous, ring the bell and hold him off until I come. Even at his worst, I can usually control him." With these encouraging words, the lady handed me over to the taciturn Austin, who had waited like a bronze statue of discretion during our short interview, and I was conducted to the end of the passage. There was a tap at a door, a bull's bellow from within, and I was face to face with the professor. He sat in a rotating chair behind a broad table, which was covered with books, maps, and diagrams. As I entered, his seat spun around to face me. His appearance made me gasp. I was prepared for something strange, but not for so overpowering a personality as this. It was his size which took one's breath away. His size and his imposing presence. His head was enormous, the largest I'd ever seen upon a human being. I am sure that his top hat, had I ventured to don it, would have slipped over me entirely and rested on my shoulders. He had the face and beard which I associate with an Assyrian bull, the former florid, the latter so black as almost to have a suspicion of blue, spade-shaped and rippling down over his chest. The hair was peculiar, plastered down in front in a long, curving wisp over his massive forehead. The eyes were blue-gray, and under great black tufts, very clear, very critical, and very masterful. A huge spread of shoulders, and a chest like a barrel, were the other parts of him which appeared above the table, save for two enormous hands covered with long black hair. This, and a bellowing, roaring, rumbling voice, made up my first impression of the notorious Professor Challenger. Yes, the notorious Professor Challenger, one of Arthur Conan Doyle's most enduring creations, which you will find in this, The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. And this is your Sunday Penguin for today. So welcome, my friends, welcome to stately Vaughan Manor. And yes, this is our Penguin Classic for today. This is actually a Penguin Red Classic. Yeah, this was a Penguin Red Classic from 2007, I think I saw. Yeah, this one's from 2007. The Penguin Red Classics are a line of classics that show up from Penguin now and again. This is from the line that showed up in 2007. At the time, the line had a bunch of adventure-y type of stories. Had this one. I remember had She by H. Rider Haggard. Had a couple of Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan books. The first couple Tarzan books, I believe, if I'm remembering right. They're just fun little things that Penguin put out. At one time, The Lost World was a Penguin Black Spine classic. I'm not sure if it is now. It ought to be. It really should be. Because this is a pretty cool book, and it is a classic. It is a classic of adventure from Arthur Conan Doyle. So this does feature Professor Challenger, created by the same guy, of course, who created Sherlock Holmes. And I think Arthur Conan Doyle went out of his way to make this guy as different as possible from Sherlock Holmes. It sure feels that way. You have the big, bellowing, violent Professor Challenger who is always angry and tossing people around when he gets mad at them. And he is leading an expedition to an isolated plateau in the Amazon basin. And the narrator of this story is Edward D. Malone, who's a newspaper reporter. And he's also taking along a few other people, most notably Lord John Roxton, a professional adventurer. So you know this book's going to be fun. Old Malone, Edward Malone, he's only doing all this to impress a girl. I guess some of us have done worse than, go visit an isolated plateau full of dinosaurs. That's right. This is a lost world. This is the lost world. And lost worlds are just full of dinosaurs. They tend to be anyway. A lot of lost world stories do. So this is The Lost World. It came out in 1912, same year as Edgar Rice Burroughs' first book, Princess of Mars. But this was a later book for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Challenger was a later creation. Challenger appeared in a few other stories. A couple other novels, The Poison Belt, which came out in 1913. The Land of Mist came out in 1926. And then Challenger showed up in a couple more short stories. When the World Screamed in 1928. And The Disintegration Machine in 1929. Now, the only one of these stories that you're going to find very often in print is this one, The Lost World. This you could find pretty easily. And if you've got a Kindle, you could find it totally easily. All the Challenger stories you can find on the Kindle if you're interested. This is the most popular one because dinosaurs. Really influential book. There were Lost World stories before this, of course. But this made Lost World stories even more popular. And everybody loves dinosaurs. So after this, a lot of Lost World stories happen to have dinosaurs in them. Because why wouldn't you have dinosaurs if you could? And of course this influenced Jurassic Park. And of course Jurassic Park, The Lost World, obviously. So this has had a lot of influence. It's carried over for a long time. I forget when the first movie version of this came out, but that was really popular. The first movie version of this was a silent film, and that was a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance to see that, I bet it's on YouTube. I bet it's pretty easy to find. But if you ever have the chance, watch that movie because it's pretty fun. Old silent movie of The Lost World. Of course, they made a bunch of other versions of this too. But this is definitely the most popular Challenger book. The other Challenger books, I can't remember the last time I saw one in print. At least from like a real publisher who's not a print-on-demand publisher. You usually will not find those in any kind of classic editions. This one you will. It'll pop in and out of different classic editions, and it ought to. This should always be a classic. This should be a black spine classic. Should be a hardcover classic. This one's a lot of fun, this book. I like it an awful lot. The Lost World. And so these guys go to this plateau. They want to go and bring back proof that dinosaurs still exist in this isolated area. They, of course, run into a ton of trouble. They find some natives there. They find some ape people there. Lots of conflict and adventure. One daring escapade after another. Can't really spoil the plot too much because I pretty much gave it to you. It's pretty much just one series of exciting adventures after the other. And you bet they come back with proof. Or do they? And what kind of proof do they bring back? It's a mystery. You'll have to read this book. And I urge you to do so. I urge you to read this. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he wrote a lot of stuff besides the Sherlock Holmes stories. And he wrote supernatural stories. He wrote just straight up adventure stories. He wrote dramatic stories. He wrote a lot of great historical works. Most of these you can't find in print. You usually will find everything Sherlock Holmes, this, and a couple of his historical works. And that's it. That's where ebooks are very handy. if you've got a Kindle or something like that, you can find everything this guy wrote. And trust me, most of it is worth reading. This was a talented writer. Talented with his stories. His stories are usually written very clearly, very directly. It doesn't feel like a story. They don't feel like stories that were written 100 years ago. This one doesn't feel like that. It's a lot of fun. He kind of cut loose in these later stories at the end of his career. They're a lot more over the top than the Sherlock Holmes stories were. So yeah, good stuff. The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I recommend it highly. So yeah, read this book if you haven't read it already. So that was that. Be sure to catch me tomorrow for Mythos Monday, when I'll have another terrifying H.P. Lovecraft story. And then on Tuesday, I'll have another tag for you. So thank you for joining me once again here for the Sunday Penguin at stately Vaughan Manor. I will catch you next time.